Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I'm thrilled to have Sara Gullickson here from Phoenix, Arizona, where I think it's Monday evening, isn't it, Sarah? Or it's early Monday evening. Welcome to the show.
It is. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And you're a seasoned or a serial entrepreneur that's had huge success. And I love talking to women who have been I've been an entrepreneur all the time, but, just kind of taking on the world and, new frontiers and trailblazing. I always get inspired basically by women like yourself. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. And you're the CEO and founder of the Cannabis Business Advisors. And that's about how to open a dispensary. So, from what I understand, you advise companies through licensing and growth in highly regulated markets. Love to talk about that highly regulated markets and how you work through it. You've secured 75 plus cannabis licenses across 30 plus US states and multiple countries. And you're a multi-state license holder yourself. The business you started you had your idea, you said in March of 2020, which is COVID. There's just this common theme going on this past week with people that I'm interviewing that seem to start their business in COVID or thought about it. How did you get into this? How did you get into such a highly regulated market? What was your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So Arizona was actually legalizing cannabis, and I grew up in a naturopathic household. My sister had a real rare blood disorder when I was younger. So naturopathic medicine to me was not a foreign topic by any means.
Mm.
And so I had a small agency for spa salons and health facilities that I did like marketing and e-blasts. And that's basically what I was doing at the time. And there was like a teeny little ad on Craigslist and it was like, need help marketing pot. And I'm like, I think I could do that. So that was back like 15 years ago. And I did it. I did it. I did it big. So it's a lot's changed since that teeny little Craigslist post. For somebody looking for somebody to help them, market an idea. So I ended up buying that firm, building that firm, selling that firm, and then I opened my second firm in March of 2020. So it's been a wild journey. I would not trade it for anything. It's been a lot of fun, but it's been a lot of stress too.
Tell us about the wild part, the wild journey, the lot of stress. Like we don't talk about that a lot. We tend to just we talk about it, we share it with our friends, our peers, or whatever. But when we get onto shiny social media or shiny LinkedIn, it's generally, I
Oh
mean, more
yeah.
and more people are being more vulnerable, but they're not really giving you the warts and all. Tell us a bit about that. Because you started in March. You're in a highly regulated market, so I can't imagine how much you come up against. Is the stress
Yes.
relentless?
You get better at stress, right? Or at least you should. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you should probably do something different. So
Yeah.
I would say my threshold today for stress is like very high. My threshold for stress back then was like I was a cat on a tin roof. 15 years ago, I was like 26 years old, hadn't lived a lot of life, came from a sheltered environment in like the Midwest in the United States and moved to Arizona to, go to school and, try and figure life out. And I got handed an opportunity of a lifetime, but I didn't know it was that when I was like going through it.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's funny. You're just, a lot of times you're not like positioned for the job. And so when you're not positioned for the job and you're young and you're naive, I don't know, maybe my parents fed me like confidence for breakfast in the morning or something, but I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I can do this. Um, but it wasn't like beautiful. Like it was not curated like our Instagram posts, our TikTok posts. It was messy and it was, learning on the fly. And I wasn't in an industry that I could call a mentor up and be like, hey, mentor that's 20 years older than me, teach me a little bit about cannabis. Nobody knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
So it was Wild West and we were creating the roadmap as we went. And so part of that was really beautiful, right? And then part of it was just like really messy because you would have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, and you'd hope that you could at least get one of those three options to work. And I think that like rewired my brain because we had our Monday morning call today and I was like, okay, like this isn't going well. Like, what's our plan B and what's our plan C? And then I forget, like, I'm the person that brings that to the table, right? So maybe the team doesn't always. So it's been, like I said, it's been fun. Maybe it turned me into like a doomsday prepper because there was no roadmap. But I love the problem solving aspect of
Mm.
it. I like to create, and so it's allowed me to create dozens and dozens and dozens of successful companies that have gone on to, sell or, flourish. And I think with my like ADD personality, I love the differences in how the days go. You know what I mean? Like not one day is the
It's the
same.
same. It never is when you're
Yeah.
in your own business or when you're scaling or whatever. Like, it's kind of like I call it like you're just juggling all these different balls, and it's like, oh, this one's just dropped. Okay, back up again. Oh, now this one. And it's kind of like it's getting your head around and, like you say, rewiring your brain to be able to have the ability to juggle the various balls that pop up.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how you help open up dispensaries and like what you're doing with businesses. Like, how does that work?
So it's not necessarily like, well, I guess we are opening a
Yeah,
dispensary. So how I tell people to think about the cannabis industry is like, you
yeah,
don't get to just like create an entity and open. Like you have to have a license.
yeah,
And so we're in the business of securing licenses
yeah,
for clients or partnerships. And so usually that's by way of request for proposal or request for application. So the government puts a notice up, they're taking bids or they're requesting bids. And then our firm really specialized when we started in the industry as putting those bids together. So, who's your team? What do your finances look like? What is your real estate comprised of? And then, once you have kind of the business basics, what's your standard operating procedures, line item by line item, to show the government how you can do this in a compliant way?
yeah,
And so that's really like the bare bones of what we do. And that's how we're starting dispensaries, is because that's how you start a dispensary. You
yeah,
have to get and win the license prior to actually opening the brick and mortar.
yeah,
So I don't do as much like consulting on opening dispensaries anymore from like a marketing standpoint once they get the licenses. Just because it's not like rocket science anymore. It's opening a brick and mortar company. And there's also other people usually in this state already that have that industry experience. So where we really shine is raising the capital, putting the bids together, and working in that competitive environment because our track record of success is so great because, we've been in it a long time, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we know that, certain states' ingredients are like other states' ingredients. So we can pull content, material, ideas. We can pull winning material and then turn it into kind of like our next winner or whatever.
yeah. I love that, and it is such a highly regulated market in terms of just that. You called out pot earlier, and kind of pot takes you to like it's cannabis here in Australia. It's becoming more and more of a medicinal, kind of functional bit of medicine, but I still feel like we've got a long way to go. Like you would have seen over the years how much that's
Yeah,
evolved and how much that's changed.
100%. 100%.
But in terms
It's
of
evolved a ton.
Yeah, but in terms of it being heavily regulated, has that changed much? Like, has that changed at all as people have become more and more understanding of what the benefits are?
So I think that those are two like wildly different topics. I think
Yeah,
there's like stigma culture, pop culture, cannabis culture,
yeah,
medical culture, recreational culture, kind of like over here. But that doesn't change the fact that in the United States, cannabis is a Schedule One drug. So cannabis remains extremely regulated in how you're running your facility. You have to have a trace from seed to sale. Your inventory has to be, stored a certain way. And so there's so many idiosyncrasies around the plant and how we dispense the plant because it is a Schedule One drug. Until it becomes a Schedule Two or a three drug, meaning not as highly regulated, that's when we can talk about regulations changing. I had this conversation earlier this week with somebody where they were like, well, the medical states are stricter. And I'm like, no. I mean, they are and they aren't. They're not more strict based on like how you dispense. They're more strict on who you dispense two. So the medical states, you have to have qualifying medical conditions. The recreational state, anyone can go in and buy cannabis that's the appropriate age.
Yeah, right. It's interesting, isn't it? What are you seeing as like what the future's looking like in this space? Like what are you seeing as like from even from 2020 to now in terms of what are the trends that you're noticing or seeing and even with the businesses and who you're with and engaging with, what are you seeing?
We went from like a mom and pop industry that was like really fun, actually. Like it was a very special time in the industry when it was small and when it was kind of like a bunch of misfits trying to figure out what to do with this thing. And then, like a couple years into my career, it started to go corporate and I started to meet with people that had other big businesses and millionaires and billionaires and politics and sports team owners and players and just a higher level of like, entrepreneur. But back in the day when it was Wild West, it was fun. Like it was, I'll always kind of reminisce about that. And so now, the industry has definitely gone corporate. It takes a lot of money to put up even just a small dispensary because of the regulations and the red tape. Sometimes when we're like trying to win a license, we'll spend four, five, $600,000 just to get the license in our hand. So it's not like necessarily like this think take industry anymore where you can just bootstrap, 30,
Yeah.
$40,000 to get to where you need to go. And so, I thought it would happen a lot quicker than it has. So we did a study, it was probably like 8, 10 months ago on how many people in the United States have access to recreational cannabis. And at that time, it was only half of the United States population had recreational cannabis. So what that tells me is I have like job security, right? I have another 10 years to go state to state to state, legalize from a medical standpoint, and then also change states from a medical situation to recreational situations. So, I mean, look, maybe in a decade, we'll see cannabis be a little bit more mainstream. We'll see most people have it in their cabinet in some shape or form. Um, the younger generation really doesn't drink. And so I think that's interesting. But I always say this, and, I think people don't like this statement that I say is, I think everybody thought that everybody would like cannabis a lot more than they do.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a preference thing. I think it's a stigma thing. So I think we have a long way to go on that side of things where, if you're like at a mommy event and like having a glass of wine is like completely acceptable. But if you're like pulling out a super low dose gummy, people would probably look at you weird, right? And so that tells me there's still a stigma.
Yeah, it's so true. I hadn't thought about it that way. You know what's so interesting? I was walking across the traffic lights the other day and there were these two women in front of me and they were having the biggest conversation about gummies. And I was like,
But
this.
it's usually like I'm having it like with her, I'm not having it with them. Do you know what I mean?
No, totally.
Like,
But it was like
yeah.
this kind of conversation, and I was listening in, like not like intently, but I kind of was because I was like, oh, they're right in
You're
front of
like,
me, and I've got my puppy here, and I'm just like minding my own business, and then she's talking to this other girl and going, this is what the benefits are, and this is what it's doing. It was a real education conversation, and I was like. And even when we got to the other side of the traffic lights, they were still talking about it. I was like, oh, interesting. It was just a different spin, a different take on it. And it is exactly what you're talking about because, alcohol does just like does so much damage to you, right? Like, but it's so normal to
Mhm.
go out, see someone have a drink. But if you were to, like you say, pull out some sort of, a gummy or whatever, like people would be just like, oh, like, you know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, no, it's funny. And it's funny, like I go like my kids go to like a really conservative private school in the area and like people like I don't do day-to-day operations. Like I don't like slang gummies at the playground, right? Like I'm like go to a dispensary and like buy it legally and like you know what I mean? That's not my part of it. But like I can't tell you how many women late 30s, mid 30s, early 40s come to me and they're like I can't sleep and like somebody has told me that this will work and like I'm going through like a hormone change or just whatever change they're going through and so that's like the market that I see struggling the most with the stigma because it's like of course listen you shouldn't take like a high dose edible and get blitzed when you're watching your kids. However, there's a safe way to do it, even safer than some of the other sleep drugs
Yeah.
to take to be able to get good sleep so you can function for your kids tomorrow. I don't have a sleeping problem, thank God, but I know there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like breaking down that stigma, and it sounds like to me it's like there's a huge, big education piece. And then how do you normalize it? Like listening to you, talking to you, making it relatable to like lived experiences as like a woman, mum, or whether they're, got hormonal things going on. Like this is the thing. We're all kind of like, you get from a lead or from a woman perspective, we're constantly I don't know. We're always seeking stuff, aren't we? We're looking for ways to feel better. We're juggling it all in terms of like I'm
Hmm.
seeing, you're not just an amazing businesswoman, but you're a mum as well. Like, how do you do it all? How do you manage it? Like, when you're
I don't know. No, I do know. Honestly, like I waited until I was like 36 to have kids. And so I had already built companies, sold companies. I was able to have a conversation with myself to say, "Hey, Sarah, do you still love this? You still want to do it while you're trying to figure out like what it is to be a mom and also like be able to enjoy being a mom." Like I had a stay-at-home mom. So my version of a mom was like a mom that was every pickup, every, sporting event. I didn't have a corporate mom to look forward to or look at for an example. And so that concept still to this day seems foreign to me. And I'm a business owner. So I still get to pick my kids up most days. I still don't, I changed my business model to not have to travel all the time. Right. And so I really look at, and I tell women, that are younger than me, which now I'm like 42. So that feels like super weird.
I'm 48,
They're,
so like, yeah,
I,
I'm not ashamed to say
anyway,
it. Like, I'm all
I don't,
about.
I'm
I
not
don't,
either. I'm not
yeah,
either. I just think that like there are a lot more women like trying to figure out what they're doing in life, like, that are younger than me these days, which is great, right? And so, what I always tell these young women is like really figure out who you are and what you're good at and, you know, work on that prior to like motherhood. You know what I mean? Because then if you want to stay at home, you can stay at home, fine. But you always have like I have a lot of friends that like don't want to stay at home. Like most of my friends are like boss women, entrepreneurs, or big corporate girlies, and like they're doing big things. And so I think that the amount of people that like staying home these days is a lot smaller than it used to be. And so I just think it's like whatever. I've just always been kind of a visionary where I'm like, okay, I don't fit in this box. I don't fit in this box. So like let me build my own box. And so that's what I've done. I'm also a single mom. And so it's like you just juggle all the things and it's just like anything else where it's like you have a priority for this situation. My kids are the priority. And the job is a second priority to me because that obviously supports our lifestyle and I still really love it. But like my kids come first.
yeah, again, it's really interesting because sometimes we get so wedded to things, right? And we try and control so much and try and control the outcome of everything. And you've just pinpointed that your priority is your children, and then second comes work, and work's still fun and you love it. Do
I
you,
love it. I love that I get to work. I love that I get to work.
yeah, but do you think by having that, I guess, view on life and leadership and business, that's what allows your business to flourish? Is that you're not so fixated on like where I'm going with this is
Yeah.
quite often we get so fixated on something, we try and
Mhm.
control it so much. But when we've got other
So,
priorities,
yeah, like I think energy brings energy. And if you're like really like, having a lot of really good energy flow through you through whatever it is, I think it's gonna like bring more energy. And I think like when I started to say no to people where I was like, I'm not doing that bed, like I'm just not doing it. Because if I do that, it means I don't get a weekend with my kids. I don't get to go to soccer or football or dance or whatever it is. I think that a lot of power just energetically comes to you in that way once you learn not to be so obsessed and so desperate. I think when women start a business at first, it's like desperation. It's like a land grab, and it's like, I have to do everything. And it's like, no, 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 no. There's so much power in saying no.
yeah. So tell us about that, like in terms of the power of saying no, but the power of having a team, right? Like even, when we were booking
Yes.
the pod, you've got Kim who helped book this, like set all this up. I loved it because she's just like, Sarah's got all these other pressing things, priorities. Like, us as women, we try to do it all at times. I know I do it,
No,
and it's
you
just like
can't. You
you
can't.
can't.
You
You
can't be
just can't.
successful when you're trying
No.
to do it all. Like I was even talking to somebody like the other day and they were like, I'm like, "Oh, like congrats on the new business. It's been almost a year. Like have you hired anyone?" And they're like, no. I'm like, are you using ChatGPT? Like, who's your assistant? And they're like, me. And I'm like, but why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? There's no universe that makes sense. Like, for me to do the things that I'm really bad at is going to take me like 5 hours where it would take somebody else like 10 minutes. Like, I'm not a big pain person. Like, I don't like putting my throat self through pain. Like, I'm actually the opposite in my flight or flight risk, where I'm like, I will pay any amount of money to get out of anything that's like, so uncomfortable that I just don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but like, I really love the support of knowing that I'm not the attorney. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the person that's really good at making TikTok reels, or like I haven't been in press as long as Kim is. And so I really, and I wouldn't be able to have the luxury of dropping my kids off, picking them up, going to their sporting events if I was trying to manage everything. I let go of that a really long time ago. I know it's something that people have a really hard time with. I just don't.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because again, like you've just called out, like I've got a question for you from a business perspective, and you talk to a lot of, I think, again, women in particular, especially if they're starting out in their own business. And so, for example, the business isn't profitable or the cash flow isn't there just yet because they're obviously building,
Yeah.
scaling, or whatever. And then there's this kind of mentality of, well, I can't afford it. I can't afford to delegate or outsource because the revenue is not coming in. Like, what's your view on that? Like,
I
yeah,
don't think you can afford not to.
yeah,
Like, I think that it's really hard to just completely bootstrap a company that you don't put anything aside to launch. Do you know what I mean? Like, and at some point, like, okay, let's say you're good at marketing and you start a marketing firm, like, you're probably not going to draft your own contracts. You're probably not going to do your own taxes. And if you can use ChatGPT or leverage for some of your, like, there's always where there's a will, there's a way. Like, taking $800 out of your like monthly budget to get somebody like assist you with nominal details can help you create another 100,000 if you want look at
yeah,
it that
I
way.
love
You know what I mean? Like, it makes no sense. It just makes no sense.
I love it. You brought up AI a few times. How much has that changed your business? Because when you booked in for the pod, my question was, what is one unique insight or lived experience in life, leadership, or business? And you said, always be ready to pivot to make the most of business opportunities. Tell us a bit
Yeah.
about that.
So I think women as entrepreneurs have to reinvent more frequently than men, right? You have to reinvent from the young woman that doesn't know anything, or from like the sexy person that turns into like a business person, from business to mom. And right, like I've had to reinvent in
Perimenopause to,
business.
like, the next era of your wise wisdom, and like, but well, it's not over when you hit that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
There's always a new version of a woman, I swear to you.
I love it.
And so I used to have a marketing agency. I used to be the person that was like posting on Facebook when nobody knew how to do it. And so when AI came out, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. No. And then like the girls were like researching some stuff, and it was like taking them forever. And I'm a like I wanted it yesterday person. That's probably one of my like strengths and weaknesses. But probably if you
Same,
ask
same,
my
same.
team, like I'm like they train the new people, or they're like, if she asks you for it today, she actually wanted it yesterday. So like just get it done. So I did a couple test things on chat. And I was like, hey, chat, tell me the legislative updates for like this week. And all of a sudden it like spit this thing out that was taking like our staff a couple hours to do. So that was like my immediate hook. And I was hooked. And then I'm like, okay, like how else can I use this? Do it for the kids stuff. I do it for planning a girls' weekend. Like I just started utilizing it like I would utilize Google. And so I got really good at the prompts. And so I think like ChatGPT or AI is a complete must for any person, because it at least gives you the baseline of the research for then you to edit. Like even a
Yeah.
content calendar, create a content calendar, a single mom, entrepreneur, da 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 da. It'll lay out the national days for you. Like it works wonders. So then of course I'm crazy. So I took it like the next step further, where I'm like, how do I build an AI bot for our industry for what I want it to do? So we're also working on that. So I haven't like completely baked everything, raised the capital yet, or have it in a place that I can talk about it. But that's how much I believe in it.
Yeah, so that's continuing to kind of, like you say, it's pivoting, it's reshaping, it's also future-proofing your business. It's scaling it even further. Do you think that's then something that
Yeah.
if you once you land this, do you think that's what you'll help other businesses with as well from the licensing perspective? Is that part of the big intention also?
Um, I actually want to help the legislators.
Okay, yeah, you did
So
say
they
that.
have a yeah, they have a really heavy lift when it comes to grading the bids and looking at the bids, and there's a lot of like legal issues that come about in doing so, and subjective versus not, and what are the scores of these bids, and so it's a whole formula on the other side of it where I'm very passionate about that just because like I've been through so many emotional roller coasters where it's like you have a license, just kidding, they're challenging it by somebody suing the state. And so that's a place in the industry that I think really needs a lot of like finessing. I do a lot of lobbying and a lot of politicking, and that's just a really big part of the industry. And it's a part of the industry that I really love. I'm like super dyslexic, and so breaking a very complex, you know, situation or concept down is very easy for me just because of how my brain's wired. And I think that's a large part of politics is messaging.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's about the story, right? It's the story that you're telling. It's how do you leverage that story? I
Yes.
think that like, and even back to women are constantly evolving. It's like that, it's that personal brand story, that personal brand identity. But it's also for me, you've just tapped into it, that business brand identity or when it comes to legislation, what's the story that you're wanting to convey? And how do you chunk it down into a way that just makes the most sense and the most simplest sense. Like I also think because, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, there is so much noise and so much, I guess, white noise as well as distractions out there. And like, how do we get back to just like the basics? How do we get back to the simplicity of what is at core here and what problem are we trying to solve? Like, what's your view on that?
I don't think we do. Like, I think the cat's out of the bag, and like, how do you like put it back in? Like, I mean, even like iPads, right? My kids had iPads when they were younger. I was a single mom, and like sometimes I needed help, right? And so I like watched what it looked like to put the cat back in the bag. And I can do it in my home. I can do it in this area, right? But I can't do it somewhere else. Like,
No.
if my kid's on a play date and somebody whips out an iPad, I'm not going to be like the crazy person that's like, oh my God, the kids can't see that. You know what I mean? And so, like, technology is everywhere, and it's such a large function of like who we are, how we function. I mean, people are now like Instagram influencers are making millions of dollars a year to put like curated content out there that's not even like their real life, right? And so I don't think that we stop being this like really fast-paced, technology-driven society. I don't think you can like stop that.
Yeah. It's just how do you ensure that you're authentic, I think is my whole point around this, right? How do you remain authentic? Like, because there is such this at times the mask we put on, the facade that's out there, like we talk about influencers, etc. A lot of it's not real. So then how do you I think there's still an opportunity to be able to bring back more realness into, do you know what I mean? Like in terms of
But I don't think you have to. Like, I don't think you owe the internet and your social media followings the real, raw, authentic version of yourself. I think that for me, clients and partnerships said to me several years, like I kept my personal life very, very private for a long
yeah,
time,
yeah,
especially because I was not doing good in my personal life. I had a 10-month-old and a 2-year-old that I was going to try and figure out how to raise on my own. I didn't want to talk about what a great mom I was at the time. It was like a really raw time. Like I
yeah,
cried every day. I didn't want people to see that.
yeah.
However, now, 4 years later, where I'm not over it, but I'm through the thick of it, I am now comfortable telling my story. So, was I being inauthentic by not posting that stuff before? Probably not. So, I think it's like, I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Like, I don't think everybody should see every piece
No,
of you.
and I'm not saying that because I could not agree with you more, right? Like the last 3 years, I've been through my own forms of adversity, and I was not in a position to talk about it. Like,
Right,
and even now, like I'm on social media, I'm off it. I'm off it, and there's a reason
right.
because sometimes I just don't feel like being on it,
Yes.
and I don't even feel like
And
putting the
sometimes it
mask
doesn't
on.
do right or do like I remember I couldn't watch like couples because it would just like break my heart. And like I'm like, that's me thing. Like I'm not mad at Joe and
No,
Sue because they're
no,
so in love. Like
yeah.
I'm just pissed because I'm not, right? So like I don't know. Like I think it's I think you just have to be smart and take it with a grain of salt and like
Yeah, I
know
think
like
you've
so much of it isn't real.
Yeah, I love it, Sarah. You're keeping it real. Tell me, what do you think of I've got a couple more questions for you. What do you think of I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? What do you think of the traits of the future of leadership in women is going to make the biggest difference? Like, what do you see? Like, what do you think women, like, in terms of what sort of traits do you think the leadership women of the future need?
So, I think that there was always this like weird thing or stigma around me that it was like I was like a bitch, basically. I don't know if I can swear on your
No,
podcast, but
it's
like I
totally
was like,
fine. Don't
I was like,
worry.
but people are like, you're just hard and you're whatever. And I'm like, I think people view women in a leadership position as that. And, I don't think you have to be rude. I don't think I'm rude. If you ask any of my staff, like I'll give them the shirt off my back. Like I just had them make their holiday schedule for what they wanted off. Like I feel like I'm really generous. But in certain settings, you have to be okay with not being liked. And you have to have the audacity to ask for something that makes other people uncomfortable. And those are two characteristics that are not feminine characteristics. And so I can be very masculine in my work, but I have to be very feminine in my home. And so I think the polarity there and the balance that you have to find in that polarity is the sweet spot for a woman in business. I just do.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's so true. Like I wrote a whole article around the integrating, that female male energy flow. It's back to your point around energy, right? Like, there's times when you absolutely need the male energy.
Hmm.
And absolutely to drive to make the decisions to go forward. I'm not suggesting you don't with female, but it's kind of how do you if you have too much female energy, well then it's not necessarily taking you where you need to. But if you have too much of the male, you get called this and that. So
Hmm.
how do you dial up both? How do you integrate it? And how do you dial up the male when you need it and the female when you need it? I think that is absolutely the modern form of leadership and the ability to do
Yeah,
so
you're right.
because you need the presence, which is that intuition, kind of the wisdom, the creativity. You need purpose, the why, but you need the performance. Like you can't deny the performance and you need people. So for me, that's kind of what it's exactly all about, everything you're talking about. And I think quite often when women are, assertive, I've been called Ice Queen in the past, where it's like, no, I just know what I want, and this is what it's
Right.
like. This is what I want, and like I actually don't believe in mediocrity. So, and I'm happy to say
No.
that all the time. I don't believe in it. So if it's mediocre, I'm kind of like, I was speaking to one of my own old staff members the other day, and he's like, I was asking him for advice on something, and needing to outsource something. He's like, I said, I'm particular. I know what I want. He goes, yes, you do. Like, so it's like,
Hmm.
I think it's a
That's
good,
okay.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it's good. One last question for you. How do you keep your own cup full? Like you've got a woman, you're a woman with a lot happening. You've got like, there's a huge amount that I see that you're still, obviously the business is, you only started in 2020, this latest business. You're about to like launch your bot. Like, how do you're juggling, you're a single mom, you're juggling children. How do you keep your own cup full?
So I think I learned what works for me a really long time ago. I remember when I was first starting my company and I was flying to Chicago and I was like, staying at a decent hotel. And I remember just being beat up that day. And I was like, ugh, what do I want to do? I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to drink a bottle of wine. And I was like, can't do that because I can't perform the next day. I was like, I'm going to go to this spa. And so for me, that's how I really care for myself. Like I get massages really frequently. I work out a lot because it keeps like the mental
Okay.
noise between my two ears down. I take partnerships and clients that support that. So I hike, I live right by Camelback Mountain. It's a really beautiful mountain. I hike it every morning. I'm on a conference call. I'm panting. I don't care. Like I don't care. Like if you don't want to work with me because I'm like care about being fit and like physically and mentally, like see you bye. And so, and I also like know my threshold. Like we're back before I had the kids, we would finish a project and I'd take off and I'd go, tour the world, right? I wouldn't know when I was coming home. I wouldn't know where I was all going. And so that really filled my cup. Like I look at all of it as like really just self-care. So travel really fed my soul and my spirit and it like reinvigorated me and I'd be ready for the next one. We just finished like all these deadlines. Like it was bananas. I think we were working in 5 states at the same time. And I just told, the staff, I was like, hey, like I need time. Like call me if you need me, but don't call me if like for something small right now because I'm the person that has to think about strategy and innovation. And
Vision.
I know myself well enough that if I'm not like if I'm worn down or burnt out and it happens, right? Like I have to have that passion and energy to invent for next year. And that's what I'm focusing on and what I've been focusing in the last couple weeks. Like I've been getting our house in order with, taxes and getting more massages than I normally do and, making sure that I'm playing. I picked up this game called Mahjong and I'm like wildly obsessed with it. So I'm like playing with Maj with my friends and I'm doing what I need to do to jump back into planning, creating, and
Being
innovating.
that, oh, I love it. Yeah, so cool. Sarah, how do we find out more about your company? How do we find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you Google Sara Gullickson or just go to my personal website, it's just saragullickson.com. And then the firm's website is the cannabisbusinessadvisors.com. Would love to connect. I love to mentor. I love answering questions. You can obviously find me on social media too.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank you.
great talking to you, and what you're doing is all about what Bee Formless is doing, and really the reshaping that life, leadership, and business. And wishing you even more success with your company and what's next. So enjoy the continuing to enjoy that self-care as well. So thank you, Sarah. I'll let you get to your
Thank you so
evening.
much. Yes, and being with people like you absolutely fills my cup. So I am so appreciative, and this was so fun.
No, thank you. Enjoy your evening. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.